Hey everybody, it's Thunder here. I'm back today with a little bit more, less intense program after that one about the planetary happenings. Hope you've recovered from that. um, but today I want to talk about shaman, medicine men, and yogis. Now, a lot of people are probably thinking, what a shaman or a medicine man has to do with a yogi. Well, I want to try to explain to you about those terms and where they come from and what they mean and how they're applied sometimes. So, to begin with, I just want to say that the word shaman comes from a place over in Mongolia or Siberia, in those areas. That's actually where the term originated, but it was adapted more in the West. And then you have the term medicine man, which was pretty much applied to the tribal people of this continent by others. Basically, the tribal people called them medicine people, not medicine men, or because they were both men and women. And a shaman can be a man or a woman, and so can a medicine man, and so can a yogi. But a yogi is, when it's a woman, it's called a yogini, not a yogi. Now, the thing that I want to mention here about all three of these entities or beings or characters or whatever you want to call them is that the thing that they have in common is they work with spiritual energy, and some say they work with spirits, benevolent or malevolent. Um, that's what other people think, and they can think that if they want, but I want to give a little bit more concise definition because in reality I am a practitioner of shamanism and I am a yogi. I am a practicing yogi. I've been since '87. And, so any of those terms would be applicable to me, but I don't go out there walking around saying, hey, I'm a shaman, hey, I'm a yogi, hey, I'm this, hey, I'm that, because you don't need to do that. Um, I use the term wisdom keeper because people just have a problem with, there's a lot of people out there that I call witch hunters that, if you put a label on yourself, the first thing they want to do is, take it on themselves to like disprove you or to test you or whatever they whatever their agenda is. Now, I've had people when I'm talking to them, uh, like I might meet somebody at a coffee shop or something, and I might get the energy flowing, and I might say certain things, and they'll go, "You're a shaman, aren't you?" And I'll go, "Well, if that's what you want to call me, that's okay with me. But I don't call myself that." But basically, what any of these practitioners, I call them, have in common is it's all about energy, okay? And it's all about breath, energy, and the yogis call it pranayama, okay? And sometimes it's called chi, by the Chinese, and the Japanese call it ki, ki, and it's about the ether or the etheric realm that surrounds us. Now, within that etheric realm, there are what we call, or there is, I should say, what we call a library of sorts. And it's a spiritual library. And it's called the Akashic Records, for Akasha. And that means that all knowledge that ever was or ever will be, or any events that ever happened or ever will happen, are in that etheric realm that surrounds us. So when you do certain practices, you can tap into that etheric realm. Some people call it, being inspired. Some people call it, raising your consciousness to another level, which is what you do. And then sometimes it happens spontaneously, and sometimes you might have a vision, or you might tap into it through a dream. But when you're like a practicing yogi, let me just touch on that a minute, because like I said, I have been practicing Kriya Yoga, and Kriya means movement of energy, and basically it's the Kundalini energy, which I talked about before, but it can be dispersed throughout the body, and it can be directed, and it can be, you can feel other people's energy. And then there's levels, okay? There's different levels of this etheric realm that you can tap into. There's several bodies of yourself, what I call spiritual bodies, that as you ascend this ladder, 7 steps to heaven, whatever, you access different parts of yourself. Not this self that I call thunder, but my spiritual self, which is way beyond any kind of ego or identity or anything of that nature. So when people say you're working with spirits, well, you may be working with your own spirits, your own higher selves. And I'm not saying that there aren't other entities in the realm or energy in the realm, but you'll find that, like with most, like say a martial artist, a master, or a yogi, or a medicine man, or a shaman, or anything, you'll find that they're all tapping into this same akasha or etheric realm, akashic realm, higher consciousness. Even Yeshua, Jesus, Buddha. So, and we all have that capability, okay, to do that. But you just don't do it overnight, I mean, there can be things that happen spontaneously, but sometimes I hear these people, and I'm not putting these people down or anything, I mean, at least they're going in the right direction, but sometimes I hear people say, I'm a Reiki master. I went to school for 2 weeks and got my master Reiki certificate. And well, Reiki's about energy. And so I work with energy all the time, and I just kind of smile and, yeah, okay, you know. You don't become a master in 2 weeks on anything. Sorry to inform you that, but you have to practice years and years and years, and then even after that, you never stop learning. It's always a thing of where you're continually making progress, continually learning until you leave this realm and go dimensional, I call it, or as the yogis call it, kicking the frame, which is a lot better than, oh, he passed or whatever. But who's to say even that, that people on this earth, if they reach a certain level of awareness or enlightenment can't continue on in the physical body for a long, long time. In fact, as long as they want. Now, I know that sounds pretty out there, pretty radical, but there's been yogis that have done all kinds of things you would not believe. And I won't go into it now, but things like having duplicate bodies and living a long time and being breathless and being buried alive and unburied and just complete control of this illusion around us. Now, as I mentioned before, it's all about energy, so I want to talk about that a little bit because there's a term in the Hindu culture, or the people that practice as yogis. There's a term called pranayama. 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 And what that is it's the chi, the energy, the prana that's flowing in the universe through this etheric realm, through this cosmos we live in. And through the breath, or through certain breathing techniques and certain meditation techniques, you can manipulate this energy or this prana. Now, this concept is kind of hard to understand, maybe a little bit, but when you do breathing techniques, it's not about the oxygen that's coming into your lungs, or if you breathe a certain way through your nose, or you have a certain technique that you use as far as abdominal breathing, which I'm sure you've heard of, and that type of thing. It's not actually about the oxygen. It's about joining up the action of the lungs and that whole situation, the whole respiratory system. It's about joining that up with the prana, or the energy, and activating it through a breathing technique. So it's not about the actual breathing. It's about the movement of energy with the breathing. I know that's kind of a hard concept to understand, but that's how you move energy. So you'll find that when you're holding your breath, or you're anxious, or you're fearful, and you find yourself holding your breath, it's better to just take a deep breath. But when you're thinking about taking that deep breath, think about moving energy. Okay? Because that's what shamans, and that's what medicine men, and that's what yogis do. They raise the energy and they send it to different parts of their bodies, and they send it through the meridians in the body, the same meridians that acupuncturists treat on your hand or wherever they stick the needles. They're activating energy. But a shaman activates this energy through ritual, through mantras, through sounds, through a number of different rituals. So, the yogis call them mantras. But the medicine men, they may chant. And the shamans have their way. And this is all, so it's basically all the same thing. Shamanistic practices are shamanistic practices. They're the same as yogis, they're the same as medicine men. You're tapping into another realm. And so I wanted to explain this a little bit to people so that they understand that it is all about energy. And it's all about meditation and breathing and raising your consciousness and going within. And this spreads across all different kinds of philosophies, Taoist, and there's so many things that the tribal nations have in common with, say, like the Tibetan people. Like the Hopis and the Tibetan people, the Hopi elders had a meeting with the Dalai Lama and they knew his language. So what does that tell you? It tells you that we're all connected for one, and it tells you that there could have been migratory patterns. Uh, because a lot of the people, if you look at a lot of the indigenous people and the Native Americans, they look like they could have come from China or, Mongolia or whatever. I mean, we all look the same. Just as a side note here, I had a couple of, what do you call them, psychics or whatever. And this was a while ago, this was years ago, but I had a couple of psychics do readings on me, and one of them was an Edgar Cayce uh, psychic or person that did readings in the style of Edgar Cayce, who I highly uh, appreciated as a prophet. But anyway, to make a long story short, a couple of people told me that I had previous lives as a Mongol. It wasn't just one person that told me that, it was a couple. So, I don't know. Interesting side note, interesting fact. Well, not fact, but, well, I kind of feel it's a fact. I mean, I've had certain things happen to me that kind of bear this out, but. So anyway, getting back to the subject here. So you have your, your shamanistic practitioners, and it's basically all shamanism, and so it's nothing to be afraid of. A lot of people are afraid of it. They fear anybody that they feel has strong energy or has control of energy. Because I can be around a person and be across the table from them and just feel everything about them. Feel their energy and send them energy and lock into their energy, and because we basically are all one. Okay, and when you get beyond that concept that that person sitting across the table from you is somebody different, they have a different personality, they have a different self-identification as far as the lower self, but it's not, we're all one. So in that regard, you can hook up with anybody at any distance. There is no such thing as distance. There's no such thing as time. But there is such a thing as dimension. And dimensional thinking. And so these are some things that, because of the talk that I gave the other day about all the situation, the horrible situation in this illusion, which the yogis call Maya. It's a delusion, an illusion. I call it the delusion and the illusion. All this stuff that's going on. And for sure there's a lot of negativity, but you can just transcend this, and that's why I said I would come back and start teaching some spiritual practices. So this is lesson number 1 about shamanism and yogis and all that stuff. And then, I might later on, I'll go into showing you some basic meditation techniques and how to move the energy and how to do certain things. I almost would rather do it in person, like I would rather do my seminars. That's why I keep pounding that drum about getting out there, because I can interact with people, I can share my energy. Because when you come in physical proximity to somebody that, is accomplished in this area, then things happen like that. They happen quicker. You can even touch somebody and affect a change in them. And so that's why I like to get out on the road. That's why I like to meet people personally, because I could sit down with somebody and I can change their whole being in a matter of 15 minutes, believe it or not. And to illustrate this, I just want to tell you a little story about how I was walking along the street one day, and there was this young lady that looked rather disheveled, and she was a beautiful young lady, but her hair was all knotted up, and her clothes looked kind of disheveled. And I was thinking, wow, another homeless person, or what's happening here, and her eyes were all red, and she came up and asked me for a quarter. I thought to myself, I don't know what she's going to do with a quarter. I said, well, what do you want a quarter for? And she goes, oh, I just want to get a cup of coffee or something. And I go, well, how about if I buy you a cup of coffee? And she goes, oh, okay. So we went over to this little place nearby, and she sat down, and all of a sudden she started crying and, wailing about my boyfriend did this to me and he hit me and this and that. And so I said, just hold on a minute here. So I went in, thought about it, got a cup of coffee for her and me, and I don't know what, I got some pastry or something and shared it with her and just showed her some love and sent her some good energy. And then I started having a talk with her about certain things, and all the time I was talking to her, I was sending her energy. And then I reached across and told her to hold my hand, and I sent her some energy. And she broke down and cried and went through all these changes and everything. But after I got done talking to her and sending her some energy, she was like, in about 10 minutes, I saw this transformation coming over her of self-worth, which is what I was projecting to her, self-worth, and not letting people beat up on you, and not thinking bad of yourself, and not thinking that you have to be in a certain mindset. I took her right out of that mindset like that. So after about 20 minutes of talking to her and sharing some food and energy and love and just a good feeling, it was like she knew it was time to leave, and I knew it was time for her to leave, because she needed to get on her way, and she had some things to accomplish, like trying to find a place to stay for the night, because she was on the streets. But when she got up, she was like totally vibrant. She quit crying. Her eyes weren't red anymore. I could see a glow about her. And I just stood up, and held her hand, gave her a little hug, and she looked at me and she said, I love you. And I go, well, I love you too. And she turned around and walked away. Now that, to me, made my day. That was a good feeling. That was one of the best feelings you could ever have, because it was just a short period of time, and yet we had a relationship and a healing and an energy exchange that most people might not have in maybe a year or two, that are in relationships and know each other. But when you lock into one another and you release and you let that energy and that flow start going, then this is the kind of thing that happens. So don't think that your energy or your thoughts can't have an effect on another person. They're very powerful. You just have to learn how to channel that energy to the other person. And you have to learn how to love that other person. And that's why I get so upset about what's happening in the world with my brothers and sisters, and all these people dying, and wars, and all the stuff that we have to put up with every day. I would rather, if I had my way right now, I would be out, I would have a area, and if anybody, wants to help me with this, or knows anybody that has any connections that feel like they want to start some type of community like this. I would like to start a community, in Arizona. I know some very beautiful places, not Sedona, no, but some places up in that area that could be used. If you could find some kind of land or property up there in certain areas, it could be a spiritual retreat. And people could get together and have these kind of experiences. And I could teach people a lot of different things that could help them in a short amount of time. But anyway, that's just kind of a dream that I have. But dreams and thoughts and imaginations create reality. And I've had these kind of visions and dreams before, and they've come true. So everything that I manifest comes through by thinking about it, by imagining it, by projecting it. And I find that the way you get that stuff sometimes is not by forcing it. In fact, every sacred book says you cannot force things to happen. Prosperity or love or any of that stuff. Because the harder you try to get that and you try to attract it to you, you're actually driving it away because you're stopping the flow of it. And sometimes I get caught up in the duality, and I try too hard to get things, so I need to learn things too. Like I said, I'm always learning. Just because I have certain facility and have been practicing things for years doesn't mean that I'm not learning. I'm always learning, and I'm always going through changes, and I'm always having things happen to me that are lessons. So anyway, I'll end it there today, and I wanted to show you my book again. Listen to the Wind, Speak from the Heart. And I didn't mention the artist's name. It's Perkinson is his name, Tom Perkinson. Listen to the Wind, Speak from the Heart. And that's a kachina on the front. He does great work. This is my book by Divine Arts Publications. And I talk about some of the stuff that I talked about today in there. And so if you get a chance, go to my website, which is down below this video, spiritofcrazyhorse.com. You push on About down there, and it flips down and it tells you about this video, and it gives you a couple of links you can go to. So I'll end it there today, and we'll talk about some more of this stuff in the next show or whenever I get inspired here to do another show on this type of thing. But just want to say blessings to you all, and I do have a love from my heart for you all, and so I guess I'll take my leave and say adios until next time.